Benjamin Price reporting for Kids First, and today I'll be interviewing Benh Zeitlin, director of Wendy, a modern reimagining of the Peter Pan story. So, Mr. Zeitlin, you wrote this film with your sister, and I'm curious, as children of folklorists, how did folklore and myth weave its way into Wendy?
In huge ways, for sure. My whole life, my parents have been telling me stories, myths from lots of different cultures, and, we just kind of, as kids, when I was even younger than you, honestly, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I would make stories for my sister, puppet shows, and they were always kind of, they were based on stories that we knew, but we would completely rewrite them. We always wanted to kind of invent our own myths, even if they had some of the same characters. And this movie, Wendy, is very much that. It's, it takes some of the characters and the main idea of Peter Pan, which is that, as long as you stay carefree and happy, you don't have to grow up. We make that sort of the stakes of the film, and then it becomes this adventure around trying to hold on to that and not break.
What themes and ideas were you hoping to explore through the lens of Peter Pan, and at what stage of the creative process did you decide to frame the story through Wendy's perspective?
It was almost the first idea, because I think me and my sister Eliza dreamed of making Peter Pan our whole lives, and we never really thought we'd be able to do it because it's such a hard story to tell, with all the magic and flying and everything that goes on. It's all kids. They always tell you never make a movie with children. It's the hardest thing you can do. So for all those reasons, we always thought it would be impossible. And then when we got this chance to do it, we looked back at the story, and we weren't 10 years old just dreaming of escaping adulthood anymore. We wanted to actually make a story about looking towards growing up, not with sort of fear, but actually with excitement, where to think how growing up could be an adventure every bit as great as the ones that we had as children. And so when we got to doing it, we thought about Wendy because, she's not a character that escapes from the world and lives in Neverland her whole life. She's the one who experiences the joy and freedom of eternal youth in Neverland, but then has to leave. And so how do you summon the courage to leave your childhood and not leave behind all the things that made you joyful and free?
What moment in Wendy are you most proud of?
Man. I think there's a scene at the end of the film, probably the most challenging scene we had to shoot, because it was on kind of this just like shard of rock miles away from land. We had to bring an army of people out there on boats. They were, all children or old people, and we shot the whole thing in blazing sun in the water on razor rocks. It went on for days and days and days, and we had to rewrite it as we were shooting it. And at the end of the day, like I think there's a really wonderful performance from Peter that I'm really proud of, where he sort of talks about loving his mother, and that was one thing that we wanted the film really to have a theme of, just making it a love story to mothers, about how important our mothers are to us, and how motherhood is a strength, and how loving your mother can also be a strength, and we really wanted that to come through, and that landed under those circumstances is something that I'm really proud of.
Where did your fascination with the story of Peter Pan begin?
As a teeny little kid, I think the funny thing about Peter Pan is, I always loved Peter Pan, but I never, it was never a version of Peter Pan. It wasn't like I was obsessed with any one movie of it or even the book or anything. It was almost like Peter was an invisible friend that followed me around when I was a little kid, because he was my idol as a child. It was like, oh, to never grow up, that sounds like the greatest thing in the world. And then as I got a little bit older and I did grow up, he became this sort of like trickster character that would follow me. So if I was thinking about whether to make the responsible choice or the irresponsible choice, Peter was there saying, get in trouble, stay out all night, like jump over that fence, like do whatever you want. Like he sort of leads you towards mischief, and then as I got to this movie, he became something else, and it was almost like this film became about teaching Peter how to care, teaching Peter that to be free and to be wild and to be joyful doesn't necessarily mean to not have family, to not have love, to not have real friends, and so it's almost like he just keeps on changing, but he's always there with me.
What films inspired you to shoot Wendy on 16 millimeter, and why did you think that was the right choice for this film?
One of the real inspirations for me are documentaries. Actually, I really love the style of documentary, and I think that taking techniques from documentary can make a fiction film seem or feel more real, than the way that it's traditionally shot. And I didn't want the film to feel sort of slick and like it was made in a computer. I wanted to feel very much like it was happening. And so there's some films by Les Blank that are some of my favorite documentaries, and that look was really important for us. And I also just love the look of film. I think it's really beautiful and it's magical in a way that, like actually just the fact that you shine light on this substance and this image burns into it, and then they're all separate pictures, you play them together, they become one. Like these magic tricks are, you feel, I think, and then when they don't, when you see movies that don't have that kind of magic, sometimes it loses that feeling of being real or being really magic in that way. And so those were reasons I wanted to shoot on film. And then also there's some other reasons too. I think that one cool thing about film is you can really almost just bring the camera and the lenses, and when you have to go to like a really challenging place, which this film was filmed in very, very hard places to get to, you can kind of just point the camera at anything and it's going to look beautiful. You don't need a big hard drive, you don't need a lot of lighting control and things like that. So that helped us sort of go on the adventure and sort of have really solid equipment that wouldn't get messed up if we got sand or water or whatever it was.
So you worked on the score for Beasts of the Southern Wild and now Wendy. What parallels would you draw between composing and directing?
It's really, there's tons, or even DJing is very similar to making a movie, and in the way that you're trying to move the audience through an experience, and there's, when you think about the structure of a song with verses and choruses, you have to, or pre-choruses, you have to change the energy. You have to set the audience up to like feel catharsis. And a lot of my films, I'm trying to kind of get the audience to go to a place of huge emotions, and you can't just do that all the time. You have to start small. You have to build up. You have to take something away. You have to give it back. It's like those things that you learn in music of how to kind of eventually build towards a climax are very similar to thinking about how to shape a film and the edit and the script and almost in every element.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to check out Wendy in theaters February 28th. This is Benjamin Price reporting for Kids First. Signing off. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.